I used to spend hours and hours in the garden trying to figure out how to grow food. But ever since I stopped doing that, I've been able to grow more food in way less time and with way less effort. Alright, so clearly you're going to have to spend some time in the garden doing all of the garden chores and taking care of the plants and all of the things, alright? But is it really possible to spend less time in the garden? Yeah, it really is. Alright, so we've got the chairs out here already, so I'm gonna make myself comfortable. Now, when I first started gardening many years ago, alright, I had, school and I was a kid and all that sort of thing. Now, I've always tried to spend a lot of time in the garden because I love gardening, but there's always been something that gets in the way, alright? When I became an adult, I had work and grad school and a whole bunch of other things. And when I graduated from school, I thought finally I would be able to spend a lot more time in the garden and I would finally figure out how to grow tons of food successfully. But that's actually not what happened, because as soon as I graduated from school, I got a job and then a better job. And then I was always aspiring for the next level at work. And then I also had a whole bunch of friends that I wanted to hang out with and family that I wanted to see and a dog, and I had all these other things, and I never found more time to spend in the garden because there's only 24 hours a day and that gets sucked up with a lot of different things. So what ended up happening is that I kept looking for ways to spend more time in the garden, but really I found ways to do less in the garden. Alright, I would find new techniques to try, things that would save me time, and at the end of it all, alright, little by little, I was able to piece together essentially what I was looking for the entire time, which was a way to balance the rest of my life with my passion and my love of growing food and growing food well. Alright, there's no use in spending hours and hours in the garden to get 1 or 2 tomatoes. Alright, I wanted to grow as much food as possible, but I didn't have the time to dedicate a full-time job to spending in the garden like most of us don't. And I absolutely love the phrase, work smarter, not harder. So that's what this video is going to be about. Basically, growing all the food that you want in your backyard, but being able to balance it with all of the other things that you love to do at the same time. Now, that's also the same reason that I'm hosting a live workshop this Sunday, October 16th, 2022. So if you are interested in growing 300 pounds of food in your normal suburban backyard, alright, I only have about 100 square feet here to garden in. If that sounds like something you're interested in as well, I will leave the link in the description below with all of the information so you can check that out and sign up. Alright, so how are we actually going to grow this amazing low effort garden? Well, it starts by growing things that are really easy to grow, alright? Common sense, of course. So there are things that are much harder to grow, alright, like tomatoes in some instances. They take a lot of babying, they require a lot of attention. You have to trellis them and make sure that they're pruned properly and they're not riddled with disease and all of these other things, alright? And then there are things that are much easier to grow, like salad greens and root crops, alright? You can put some radish seeds in the ground, you can sprinkle some arugula seeds right on top of the soil without even covering them. And in about 30-ish days, you'll have food, alright? And all you have to do is water it somehow, and even then, alright, if it's raining outside, those things will still grow. Growing things that are easy to grow, alright, and you can just look up a list of easiest to grow things, alright, those things will provide you a quick turnaround and really a good return on your investment because you don't have to put in that much work, and essentially that is what we're all looking for. Alright, of course in my garden now, I balance those sorts of things with other things because I love growing tomatoes, alright, but I have had to figure out the hard way how to grow tomatoes, whereas my arugula and my salad greens, really they just grow themselves. Next up is drip irrigation. Alright, you can see this brown line that I have, and it runs throughout my entire garden. Alright, it pokes its head up over here, and this black line back there, that is like the main hose for the drip system. Now, not only do I have a drip system, alright, but I have it hooked up over here where I'm heading to a timer. Now, this thing actually goes off every morning at 7:30 in the morning. You can see my little list of days here. I have it set up so that it runs every single morning for 20 minutes, and I never have to come out here and water the garden. Which is absolutely amazing because for the first 20-ish years of my gardening journey, I watered my plants manually. Alright, and there's nothing wrong with watering your plants manually. It can totally work out, just fine. The problem is that you're going to spend a lot more time and a lot of effort. The only effort I put into this watering system right now is making sure that nothing looks off. All right, if the plants look like they're wilting, if the plants look like they're yellow, then that's maybe a sign that I need to decrease the amount of water, or increase the amount of water, or adjust it somehow. But even that is just the touch of a button. All right, I don't have to come out here every day or twice a day sometimes and water like I used to. All right, now a drip irrigation system can get expensive, all right, and I completely understand that. All right, I have spent hundreds of dollars in a drip irrigation system in the past. The one in this garden right behind me was about 100-ish because I had some of the parts, but I think a total of like 100-ish, but it really is worth it. Think about the hours that you're spending. All right, if you're spending 10 or 15 minutes every day, maybe even more in the summer months, to water your garden, that is hours every week that you do not have to water your garden. You don't have to be out here, you don't have to be in the sun, you don't have to wake up early. All right, I know that I hate waking up early, especially to come out here in the sun just to water the plants. So having this drip irrigation system set up is the best thing that I have done for my garden to date. Now this next one is going to be a little bit of a debate because there are people who say that you should really till your garden, and then there's people like myself on the other hand that don't really do anything to the soil because I don't want to disturb all of the microorganisms and the bacteria and everything else that live in the soil. All right, which brings me to no-dig gardening. All right, if you've never heard of no-dig gardening, basically you don't till the soil and you just keep adding onto the soil. Every season I come out and I add fresh compost and I amend the soil and worm castings and all of the stuff, and then I plant directly into it. All right, and when I rip up my plants, I try my absolute best to not rip up and destroy all of the nice soil layers that have already been created. So essentially you have to do way less work because you don't have to actually till the soil, move around the soil. I did used to do that when I first started gardening, and first of all, it was such a pain in the rear end. All right, but also, I'm actually getting much better crops now than when I used to. When you let the soil actually do its thing and just leave it undisturbed to form all of the layers that it needs and all of the intricate pockets and stuff underneath the soil, you're actually going to get a lot better crops for way less work. So at this point, I don't even know what people are doing still tilling the soil unless they have like really heavy clay or something. But in my garden, I keep adding organic matter every season, and that's pretty much what I do to prepare. The same is true when it comes to plants and the plant selections that you make for your garden. All right, these are bush beans. Specifically, I think they are blue lake bush beans. Some of them are jade bush beans, but essentially I have chosen crops for my entire garden that do not require any sort of pollinating. They are self-pollinating. All right, they don't need more to produce. You don't have to plant hundreds of them. You don't need anything to come and mess with it. Now for this next one, I want to show you something I'm growing this season, all right, which is a little tomato plant. All right, I have tons of little tomato plants that I am growing. I'm just gonna put that back there. All right, and I have a whole bunch here in my greenhouse ready to go. Now, an amazing thing about tomato plants is that they're actually self-pollinating, which means that they don't need a bee to come in and take the pollen from multiple flowers and pollinate them and all of that. One tomato flower has all of the parts it needs, the male and the female parts, in order to create a tomato. All right, so all you have to do is ensure it's getting moved around either by the wind or insects, or if you really need to, you go in and you just tap on the flowers a little bit and it pollinates itself. The same is true with eggplants and a whole bunch of other plants. All right, so the more self-pollinating things that you grow in your garden, the less work you have to do, which is why I choose to grow a lot of them, because I like being a lazy gardener. But of course, for the rest of your plants that are not self-pollinating, something I like to plant out is a flower or other type of herb or something. I have some herbs over here, all right, that are pollinator friendly plants, things that attract pollinators to your garden, things like bees and other insects that will actually pollinate those plants that need that pollination. This is my lemon balm plant, and this is actually spread. All of this is one plant. All right, you can see it's kind of like woven up in here in my volunteer mustard plant. All right, but that's all one plant and it's doing a really good job. It has a lovely scent. I use it for tea a whole bunch. I just cut it back the other day, but all of this will definitely attract pollinators. The same thing over here, I have lots of herbs and oregano, and actually one thing that I always see on this flat leaf parsley over here is swallowtail butterfly caterpillars. I see tons of them every season on this parsley and they just absolutely love it. All right, and then they turn to butterflies and populate the garden. Now, one major benefit of doing this is that those kind of plants also attract predatory insects, all right? Things like wasps and ladybugs and a whole range of other insects that will come in and prey on the things you don't want, all right? So for example, if you want to get rid of aphids, then a good thing to attract is ladybugs, all right? So by attracting these pollinators and predatory insects into your garden, you're actually doing a whole lot of organic pest control, which is amazing because then you don't have to come in here and put diatomaceous earth and neem oil and BT and all of the other organic things. You're getting free pest control, which you can't really top that, all right? And of course, if you enjoy saving money, which most of us do, a great thing to do is let your plants go to seed. I am not using these okra. I have let them stay on the vine, all right, and they are getting nice and big and woody, and they are going to just provide free seeds, all right? I love this variety of okra, and I haven't been able to harvest it tons because there's a whole bunch of ants on it, and I am actually allergic to that. So I have just let them stay on here and grow as big as possible, and when these dry out, which hopefully they will soon before I have to rip them out, all right, they will go to seed, and then I can open them up and save the seeds that that they've grown. All right, and that is free seed without me having to do anything. I didn't have to rip them up to get the seed. All I had to do was harvest it when they were done growing. And I saved money in the process, which, I mean, come on, that doesn't get much better. All right, and this one is huge, you guys. All right, this is probably the number one thing that people do wrong, but also the thing that if you get it right, you will do so much less work in your garden, hands down. And that is to plant things that grow well in your area, all right? Not only for your hardiness zone, but things that are tolerant to your conditions, all right? Not necessarily even the neighbor's conditions, just things that grow well for you. So if you have, small spaces to grow in, plant things that are compact and will grow in containers. You'll do a lot less work because those things are already supposed to grow there. If you know that you get a lot of frost and cold in your area, plant things that are cold tolerant. I mean, obviously. All right, the same thing in the heat. Plant things that are heat tolerant. You're not going to be able to work against nature and try to grow things, at least you're not going to be able to do that successfully, to grow things that, are meant to grow in a different type of environment. But in the summer here, I can't really grow a lot, but I can grow okra, which is a very heat tolerant plant. The same thing if you know that you live in a very drought-ish place, all right, you don't get a lot of rain where you live, plant drought tolerant plants. All right, there are lots of things that are drought tolerant, heat tolerant, cold tolerant, disease tolerant. All right, if you know that you always get blight or you always get a certain type of pest, try to plant things that are more resistant to that. And there are varieties that are resistant to lots of things. So all you have to do is search them. So that is everything that I do to create a low maintenance and low effort garden. I spend way less time in the garden and get lots more food. But if you want to check out the ways that I actually strategize and grow more food in order to actually get a bigger harvest, then I will leave that here on the screen somewhere. Don't forget to check that out, and I will see you guys in the next one.